Vandeham Sri Guru.
I'd like to inform you that we have three very, very exciting initiatives this year. First is what we call Krishna Talk. That's starting today. Presentation by His Holiness Romapada Swami, and I'll come back and introduce him as well. The second is an initiative that perhaps many of you are aware. If not, this would be the time. We have what is called Krishna Lunch. This is a lunch program 5 days a week on campus. This is the only vegetarian alternative on campus. And we've been doing it for over 2 semesters now, actually 3. And we've had fantastic responses, not just from the students, but support from the academic affairs folks, the student government, etc. And so please do, if you've not already had, I would highly encourage that you do stop by and buy Krishna Lunch.
Where?
We're here 5 days a week in Siegel Hall and Stewart Building from 11:30 through 1:15. 11 to 1:15. So please do stop by and try it out. And the third is a place called Krishna House, which is right on campus. Address is 3135 South Michigan. So that's right across on campus. And it's a place for young folks to gather. So we have meditation sessions. The most popular one is called Kirtan sessions. Different persons come and give talks on different current topics related to spirituality and how we can try to integrate these in our own lives. So we encourage you to please explore these and get to know us more. So today's speaker is His Holiness Romapada Swami, who is a practicing bhakti yogi for over 40 years, travels extensively in North America and India, and meets professionals, students alike, and introduces and trains and guides in the science of what we call spirituality, science of Krishna consciousness. And he is a member of what we call the Hare Krishna movement, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and an avid speaker on topics that come very close to heart in terms of personally how we can apply the science of spirituality in our own lives. So we're very, very honored that Maharaj is here. So for question and answers, please do ask as many questions as you would like, and you can address him as Maharaj. That would be an appropriate and fitting way of addressing him. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Okay. And at 1:50. It's now 12:50. I'll try to be concise. A topic that I've thought a lot about over many years, and through interacting with young people, and old people, but more young people, thinking about wanting to be genuine, themselves, finding themselves, expressing themselves, being themselves, and the pressures on the other side of conformity. So, this is a little different audience, largely international audience, and my guess is largely graduate audience, so you've been through all that stuff already. But maybe more so for undergraduates, but the subtitle is Beyond the Conformity Game. Someone yesterday was suggesting, Himanshu was suggesting, maybe you should write a book about the Beyond Conformity Game. Sounds like a good title. And then, go take people through the ways in which conformity is imposed upon us. So, this is the other title, Authenticity of Your Individuality. So here's a really easy question to answer. Would you rather be and consider others to think of you as genuine or fake? That's a real easy one to answer. You want to be genuine. So then come to the next question, what's that? And how do you sort out what's genuine from the expectations of others placed upon you that then you live out and that's who you are? And maybe some of that's good, and so that's where we're going. And this is another way. So conformity is like poison to your soul. So we're starting from this position. This is the Vedic Vision Society, but our real identity is we're soul, and we're souls within a body, according to the Vedic wisdom, both a gross and a subtle one. The gross one is easier to detect. It's this one. And so there's an American one, and an Indian one, and a Russian one, and a Chinese one, and then a male one and a female one. And there's upadhis or designations upon the body type and the family from which we are. Then there's subtypes of not the Indian one, but then the North Indian, South Indian, the Gujarati, and the there's different types, and then so on. So that's the gross one. Then there's the subtle one. Vedic picture is mind, intelligence, and false ego, and we have different types of minds, and so forth. But and there's pressures. There's language that's from Bhagavad Gita, say, pressures from our past activity, karma, pressures from our association with the modes of nature, guna. And it's confining us to behave and be a certain way. But that's not who we are. None of those things is who we are. So who are we? There's a lot to say, so I'm going to... I wish I could go slower, but time doesn't permit, so I'm going to go fast, or medium at least. When we look within ourselves and wish to find ourselves and be ourselves, there's pressure, let's just say, the academic pressure to perform and compete and be successful. And how do you, when you wish to be with others, very genuine and kind, and just wear yourself on your sleeve and be who you are, while maybe wishing to do like that, there's other types of pressure that tell us, hey, here's another chair, I'm not going to use it. Go. And as you go, compete and win. You don't know how to win, because that's why you're here, because you're trying to win. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here. So there's, in short, there's pressures to continue to be successful. And as you're being successful, the social equity or other types of equity in being yourself, it wasn't a question that you were asked when you made your application to attend this institute. How far along in your trajectory are you in self-realization? Or when you graduate and you make an application, are they going to, or there's an interview, a job interview, how much are you advanced in your process of understanding yourself? They're not going to ask that. So, again, keeping it very concise, in a consumer economy type of lifestyle, we have to make ourselves marketable. And so we may not display our individuality, but more, being normal, and being successful in ways that we're supposed to be successful. I could go on and elaborate, but I'll because of time, use your imagination in that direction. So, and just in social dealings, like even with people that we mix with, in your academic milieu. We're not always expressing to everyone everything natural. There are some things that we express to very close people, and so the rest of there's an amount of just like blending. Now, yesterday I was at the University of Illinois-Chicago, and as we were walking into the program, it's a very different set of students at the University of Chicago, Illinois, usually Illinois-Chicago, and there's lots of people that are expressing their individuality by their tattoos, or the medals in their face, or the way they wear their hat backwards, or that I'm an individual. But there's so many people wearing the hat backwards. So I've got this kind of tattoo. During the summer, just anecdotal, I was at a meditation retreat in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, so United States, way up here, for those of you who are not familiar with geography. Way up, near Seattle. Fort Flagler used to be a military base during World War II, where the American Navy set up a base to make sure that submarines and battleships didn't go into the Puget Sound, and they could check it out. So they had that set up, and then the war was over, so they still have all those buildings. Now they use it for events, so we went and had our event, meditation retreat. And the room where I was staying in, I think, my guess was, it was one of the officers' quarters. So on the wall in the officers' quarters was a Norman Rockwell painting. Norman Rockwell, for those of you that are not from America, was an American artist that captured, not with photography, with painting, scenes of America in the 1950s, in the post-war era. So one scene fitting for the Navy base was a Navy officer with his Navy hat on, cockeyed, and kind of like goofy-looking big guy with big arms. The tattoo guy was putting an arm in, his tattoo. I love Susan, crossed it out. I love Jane. I love Mary, crossed it out. He was putting the third one on. And that was like, this is me. And today, it's now many young people, this is their individuality. Look at, they spend time looking at each other's tattoos, so I get a new one. It's conformity in expressing their individuality. Is that really who they are? So, what does it mean to express your individuality? Or another way is, how much are we living our lives, or how much are you living your life, and not someone else's game plan? Now, if we had more time, and if I knew all of you more than I know you because we're just meeting, I'd stop and we'd spend some time saying, what do you think? What do you think? And I'll just, because I've done that, I'd say, it's hard to say, is the response. Because to some degree, and then to some degree, there's the other. It's hard to say. And so there's an amount of conformity in expressing and being who we are, more or less. This is taken from Karl Marx's manifesto. There was a period of time in Western Europe and in Eastern Europe and then in Russia where there were a lot of philosophers discussing being and the individual and society, and the individual in society, and taking from some German philosopher, Freundlich or something like that, Karl Marx. This is like, kind of a summary of one of the main centerpieces of human being. The human being, a man's nature is no more than what is made by his social relations. A man is a product, an individual is a product of the society. And so socialism or communism doctrine is, we have to treat the individual as like just a combination of the pressures upon him by social relationships, and rearrange social relationships so you have more freedom of individual expression, kind of thing. And it's a common idea. Like historians, I'm painting a picture here of the individual. Historians say a great man is a product of his times. He's nothing but same thing. There's his times. I was just watching a video on the life of Richard Dawkins before coming here. You know, there's the individual, but there's the forces upon the individual that make the individual an expression of his times. Even an outstanding person, an expression of his times. So historians look at the lives of people in terms of their times, and they're a product of their times. They're revered because they're like a strong expression of their times. So how much is individuality, and how much of it is made up of our social relations or our social connections? And all of that has, at least this time around, the Vedic picture certainly teaches about many lives. The soul passing through many lives. But just even in this life, the expectations of others or receiving from others our social identity. Here's your name, here's your family, here's our expectations. And so on. And life goes on in that way. And one of the ways that helps people conform is we want love and respect. Again, if I had more time, which we don't have, I would ask some questions people wanted to share. When you wish to be something other than the expectations of others, what might hold you back from doing that? Because you don't want to disrespect them. You want to receive their respect, and you deserve to respect them. So you don't want to rock the boat. So someone helped me put the images together. I thought it was like amazing. I asked them, how'd you get this? And they just Googled in heart and fishing and a hook. And this came up on the screen. So persons, conformity can be induced simply by wishing people to have our respect, knowing that it's just a human nature thing. And it's appropriate. Those who we receive from in our lives, we want to respect them. We should respect them. Good persons do that. And in that way, continuation of a certain set of norms and expectations of social behaviors are preserved. So it's not necessarily saying it's bad, but still the question, who are we? And if we want to be, we strongly feel something, we want to be ourselves in a certain way, what holds us back? There are these pressures of conformity that hold us back. And in a society that isn't especially based on authenticity and genuineness, like I just gave a couple of examples. One of my friends who does what I do speaks like this in the course of his travels. How many of you have received a notice in the mail from either the university or from the government or from your employer that says, we know that you're on a quest for self-enlightenment and we need citizens like you. We're fully behind you. There's no equity in that. It's not a value that people have. In a society where it's not something that's really especially valued, there's other things that are valued, but that's not so much valued. Maybe individually, maybe amongst your friends, and to some degree. But it's difficult to be authentic in your individuality, genuine in your individuality, in a society that's not a value. So, could spend a lot more time on that one, but are there options for us? And the Vedic wisdom invites the option of introspection, or finding happiness within, not finding happiness in fulfilling the expectations of others, but finding happiness within, so that happiness within will go quickly and say, it's the soul. I mean, the mind is chunculate, it keeps moving. Today, and then tomorrow, and then over time. The expectations and what my sense of happiness is keeps changing. But there's something fundamental inside that's unchanging, and the Vedic wisdom invites us to go there. And that's connecting that spiritual conception with a desire to be, to discover who we are and to be who we are in a society. Diversity is nice. Diversity doesn't mean rupturing harmony and unity. It means being who you are. But it's very difficult to do that when the view it takes is that life is material. The mechanistic view of life. So now we're moving to the view of life that's from a spiritual perspective. And certainly that's the Vedic wisdom points to the spiritual dimension. It doesn't deny the fact that we have a body and it has its needs. We have a mind and an intellect, and they have their capacities and they have their needs. We look to them. But that's not who we are. So it's nice to ask these kind of fundamental questions. Do I really know who I am? I'll just share something with you, personal, quickly. People like to hear this one. Like, how did you get involved in all this to begin with? What's your story? So this is the story. I was a student in my undergraduate studies in the late '60s, and before I went to college, my father asked me, "What do you want to study?" Then I thought I would just begin with an undeclared major and feel things out and then decide. He said, "I'm not in favor of your attending college without having a clear objective." He usually didn't put his foot down, so I knew he was serious about it. So I said, "I'd like to be a doctor. I like to help people. That's a nice way to help people. I'd like to be a doctor." Okay, fine, go to college. So I'm in college. Fourth year in college, starting to look around for attending medical school and visiting places to attend their medical school. And my parents told me, "I'm getting notices in the mail at home to 1A, draft notice." For those of you that are not from America, that means conscription. You're being told, I was being told, to join the U.S. Army and get my Army uniform and go off to Vietnam and fight in that stupid war in Vietnam. And that's really dumb. I mean, the war is dumb, and why take somebody out of medical career and send them off to that? I just didn't pay attention. We just kept going. And they kept getting notices, and they started worrying. They said, "You got to do something, you got to do something, you got to do something." So I started to do something. I asked, trying to keep it concise, my friends, what do I do? Would you have any thoughts on this? They said, "Yeah, there's a group called the Quakers. It's like religious denomination. They're anti-war, and they'll help you get a conscientious objector form that you can fill out and file, and you can become free from the draft." Great. So I got the form. First question on the form says, more or less, "Please state the nature of your belief such that you cannot take part in the armed forces of the United States of America." That's more or less the question. So I was a dean student, I had to get A in the exam, started filling it out. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, what's my convictions? And my pen wouldn't move, because I could fake it. But what's my convictions? Like what? Everything exploded. So wait a minute. I'm on this conveyor belt where I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing. Social, academic, athletic, I'm responsible. I don't even know what my convictions are. Huh? What's going on? What went on? What is this process that doesn't even encourage me to find out what my convictions are? And not only that, and yada, 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 I went like, 100 things. I have so many questions that I haven't asked, that I don't have answers to, and I'm doing a timeout. Took a leave of absence from school and said, I want to get answers. So I thank the United States government for sending me their 1A draft notices, because it kicked me in the seat of the pants and had me start asking questions I should be asking. And I wish they had encouraged me to ask them, as I'm now encouraging you to ask them. These kinds of questions. Because the way society works, rare are the efforts to understand one's true identity. Conformity has its merit. So many consumer units, we make so many products of certain type, and then we sell them. You know the story. It wasn't like that before, but it's become the norm. It's strongly the norm. And India started it, and China did it too, and India did it too, and one of the places I visit is China, and I ask the people that live there, is the quality of life better now that China is a huge, factor in the world economy? And the answer is no. But, we have more stuff, but are people more happy? Has the value, has the quality of life become better? And, not just one country, the world. Are we better off? But, it helps in the consumer economic program. Lots of consumer units to buy things. And I'm using that language because marketing people, at least some, talk in that language. And that's how they view markets, as so many consumer units. Now, some of us, or some of you, probably wouldn't be here for business, some of us kind of thinking, what's on the other side of the conformity game, besides being what people expect me to be, and who am I? So, language like piercing the veil and getting on the other side of, besides, being responsible for expectations, after all is said and done, those kinds of questions, what are my convictions, who am I, what's really essential in this human form of life between, there's another nice picture. So, how do we get there? And asking questions help you get there. It's like the beginning. Those of you from India, you know this phrase, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. It's from Vedanta Sutra. It says, Ataha, now that we've achieved this human form of life, Brahma Jigyasa, one should inquire into the nature of the absolute truth. Like, where does everything come from? What is that from which everything else emanates? So, some people say it's the Big Bang. So, where did the Big Bang come from? Where did the singularity come from which the Big Bang came? What started the Big Bang? Who pushed the plunger to bring the explosion? What's the origin of everything? How do we connect with who we are will help us reach that understanding by understanding what's the big picture. So here's the thing. So here we are. This is each one of us. Looking on the one side is birth, the other side is death, and what's in between is called life. And so, what goes in that space? what are we supposed to be doing with our life? Like, is it? This is what I asked myself at that little juncture, but I didn't know what my convictions were. I said, I don't want to be at the end of the conveyor belt of life, being what I'm supposed to be and still not know who I am and what my convictions are. I don't want to be there. That's the time out. I want to understand what goes in there. And so there's some related questions, like, the individuality question, who am I? And what's real happiness? I'm pursuing happiness. All men are created equal. And they're endowed with their creator, this one miracle, with certain inalienable rights, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know them. Okay. Great statesmen said. So, this is a nation where this is what the nation stands for. But, what's the standard for true happiness? Who's really asked that question? What is it? You can offer some options, and what is it? In my life, aside from what everyone else is expecting to me, and I'll be responsible in my life, what's my real purpose? My personal identity, my real purpose? Or am I just living the life of others' expectations? And there's problems, real, like, even if, some of the other problems can be taken care of. They're fundamental ones that just don't seem to go away. According to Bhagavad Gita, birth, death, disease, and old age. That's because the soul is embodied. And how do you address that problem? The embodiment problem. Maybe there's no solution. Is there a solution? And so asking those kind of questions naturally lead to a spiritual sense for people then ask, if the light's on, am I a material entity or a spiritual entity? And if I'm a spiritual entity, what am I a spiritual part of? Now, back to the consumer society, we have relationships with one another. We're social beings. We naturally want relationships. But in the consumer society, as with consumer products, we buy and discard. Products are designed so they don't last. So you have to discard them. It's design, not an accident. It's design. And they study how long it'll take for a person to continue to buy when the product stops working anymore after a certain amount of time. They study carefully. That's how I believe study marketing. So, relationships, it spills over to relationships. Finding happiness in relationship, and try out a few and then discard them and get some other ones and see which one fits. Like shoe store. Try on a bunch of shoes till you find one that fits, and so then it'll fit for you. You wear it for 2-3 years. Then discard them and get another pair of shoes. Human relationships have become like that. The meaningfulness of those relationships have also become more shallow. And you don't like it, but that has become more prevalent than something that's enduring. So how do you have something that's genuine and enduring in a society that's not conducive for that? So this is another question. Examine the relationships or network of relationships that you have, and how much of them are genuine and how much of them are cosmetic and superficial. Put it on, take it off. Now you have a friend, and then that's it. Let's just take one example of education. In the Vedic model of education, those of you from India, you know the Vedic model. There's a teacher, and the parents entrust the child in the care of the teacher, and their whole life, the teacher teaches, the Brahmana teaches the child academic things and values of life. And according to their nature, it's described by Bhishma Dev to Maharaj Yudhisthira in the Bhishma Parva section of Mahabharata, how the teacher teaches the student. They teach them values, they see their nature, and according to their nature, they give them the skills that match their nature, and then they grow, whatever their natural occupation is. And there's a very strong relationship, obviously, with the teacher, just like a parent. And the parents are happy for that if the teacher is qualified. But what kind of relationships do we have with our teachers? Who remembers what their third grade teacher was? Etc. So it's you get the idea. It's not deep. But the Vedic model is that's the place, along with the family, where values are passed on through the teacher-student relationship. That's missing. So when we have a false sense of connections, because we don't really know what a real identity is, then the relationships we have also have no authenticity. And it's not satisfying. And yet we live with it because that's the model. That's the model. It's the way things are today. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about, paraphrasing and keeping it very simple, it's really important to know your identity on the spiritual platform. Because if you're not on the spiritual platform, you won't understand yourself and the relationships will not be fulfilling. You won't have a full sense of what your duty is and how to live a happy and fulfilled life. So get to a spiritual platform is the advice of Bhagavad Gita. The physical conception is limited. And the spiritual conception, where's the boundaries of it? It's very big. Because everyone here, we're all spirit soul. You have different families and different nationalities and different native tongues and all of that. But we're all spirit soul. We're all part of the same Supreme Spirit, and that connectivity is a whole other thing than just like learning how to get along with people that have different cultures and different ways of doing things. It's a whole other approach. It's the other side of the conformity paradigm. So, stated simply, real individuality is not possible where there is prevailing a material conception of life. A strong sense, now I'm going into Bhagavad Gita, the strong sense is that through the agency of our dear friend false ego, we strongly identify with matter. False ego is a term, I don't know how you all are used to it. When I was growing up, false ego meant like somebody that's like a macho personality. That person's got a big false ego. False ego, in the Vedic sense, means the sense of self is misplaced. Misplaced in the realm of matter. The covering. And that's who I am. And it's very strongly reinforced when you make your applications. Like I travel, so they want all your information. What's your name? Your parents' name, your place of birth, your passport number, your age, your gender, your nationality, what's your address. That's who I am. Now it's fingerprints. So that's who I am. It's unique. It's not like anyone else's. That's me. Strong identification with matter keeps us away from understanding who we really are. So, same thing said again in the question, am I really this body, or am I something other than this body? And if I'm spiritual instead of material, how do I live my life that way? And what's my connections with my family and my friends and the world and others? How do I live my life? So, famous quote, I'm sure you've heard this one before. You can never solve a problem on the level on which it was created. So there's a dilemma just in terms of this individuality thing, genuineness of individuality. If it's created with a paradigm that's material, you have to get on the other side of the material paradigm. You have to, again using this language, pierce the veil. Or I found this nice image. We're in this shell of material conceptions, expectations, social pressures, and so many other things. That's the egg. And we're looking out some are looking out to see what's beyond this. Is there something beyond this? Is this who I really am, and that's it? Or is there something more to who I really am? I have a devotee friend who's good at art and photography, and not as good at graphics, but here's what I asked them to do. They create this one for that one. Get on the other side, and now we're on the other side of that conformity. And what does that look like? If I'm a spiritual being, well, I also have a body and a mind, and with that, things that I value and wish to be, and it's not that just because somebody told me, but I wish to be these things. I want to be grateful for that which I've received from everyone that I've received from. Now, in living my life in that responsible and respectful manner, who am I? And where's the train going? What's the real me, and where does it all take me? The Vedas, this is the Vedic Vision Society, the Vedas give this wisdom that help us mold our lifestyle in such a way that spiritual wellness and following spiritual wellness, material wellness, as the shadow follows the object that's casting the shadow. When the self-realization becomes properly established, and the ways in which the wisdom literature or Vedic literature guide us through teachers and teachings how to lead our lives, this is an alternative to the conformity game. Understanding who we really are. All living entities are connected to the same source. That's another message of the Vedic wisdom. And discovering, not just because somebody says so, but discovering through the systems of connection, through yoga. Bhakti yoga in particular is advocated especially by Krishna and Bhagavad Gita. And with this bhakti yoga, we can act in a relationship with a spiritual conception, with the ultimate connection, the supreme connection, or love supreme, or give it a nice name. That's what it is. Last slide. It skips a lot of things. We don't have a lot of time. Another Albert Einstein quote appropriate for this topic. The one who follows the crowd will usually get no further than the crowd. The one who walks alone is likely to find himself in places no one has ever been. He certainly thought out of the box. And he's inviting us to think out of the box and live that way. And I'm specifically inviting two things. Think about the pressures of conformity, and rather than just yielding to them and living your life according to the conformity expectations, let the light go on inside and ask yourself the question, what are my convictions? Who am I really in the higher sense of that? It's a wonderful experience. There's not a lot of support. Likely, the government isn't going to support it. Many family members may not support it. Maybe a few friends will support it. Not a lot of support. But the other is not so satisfying. Just go on lights out. Just go on. Turn the light on and consider, contemplate beyond conformity, the nature of the real self. And the other is be guided by a spiritual conception that's beyond the material conception, and the guidance of wisdom literature like Bhagavad Gita, and persons who are experienced in that wisdom. Together, the teachings and the teachers can help guide your individual spiritual journey to self-discovery. And don't be at the end of the conveyor belt of life where you haven't done that. Maybe materially successful, whatever, but you still don't have a clue. You conformed and been successful according to the expectations of what conformity, what success is, but you still don't know because you haven't sincerely asked. Now's a good time. Really good time. You're forming your lives and your careers and your etc., etc. Ask those questions. Take the wisdom literature, take the guidance of wise people, and nurture it along with the other things that you're doing. Not like displace them, but along with what you're doing. Grow a nice spiritual wisdom garden, and you're right in the center of your life. And have a nice time doing it. Any comments or questions? I left extra time because I thought we'd have a lively discussion.
I have a few questions, but they're a bit fragmented. So
I'm used to it.
yeah. So let's work on it.
Kick the ball.
To and fro.
Let's see where it goes.
Okay. So my first question is that we're taking Albert Einstein as an example, but he didn't lead his life in a very disciplined manner, as per se. And for example, he said that if you go with the crowd, then it's a dead end. But if you find your own path, but if you are on your own path, then there's a fair chance that you might stray. Then who do you vouch on? Do you always vouch on Krishna?
Do you always vouch on Krishna?
Like
That what you're
count
doing?
on.
Bow down to Krishna?
Yes, if you're on your own path. And in addition to that, the way our social fabric is that, we support each other or we bring down each other. But that way, we are in constant conversation with each other. But if we all take our own path, then there will be a lot of fragmentation in the society. And the social structure, the current social structure will break down. So I'm not sure what exactly my question is, but that is what was going through my mind.
Well, because you said the second one second, it's more fresh in my mind.
Yes.
Maybe I'll address that one and then try to remember what the first one was. Address that. The advocacy is internal. It doesn't mean that this advocacy is not, don't wear shoes. Or put your pants on your top and put your shirt on the bottom. It's not like be a nonconformist. It's not that kind of a...
Being very well.
Yeah, it's not being rebellious and an advocate. It's internal. The advocacy is internal. So, and the advocacy is not be disrespectful. I said it several times deliberately, but it's natural. Those who you have received from, you feel something like gratitude. And in that gratitude, there is reciprocation for what you receive from those who you received. And it's that there's a conformity that's not just imposed, but it's something that you feel. That's good. It's like stress. They have this language that there's toxic stress and healthy stress. So it's not the goal of stress management is to have no stress. Then you become a lazy bum. So it's to act in social nuances that are wholesome, good. Let the light be on. Internally consider who you are. Now, that's the social fabric. things would just become chaos and social fabric would break down. So I'm not advocating that.
Right.
I'm not an anarchist, but a spiritualist.
But if we have some internal convictions on ourselves, it has to, it usually comes out in some shape or form.
Sure. So let me just jump on that one for a second,
Right.
if I may. Here's a Sanskrit verse. Kruti Smriti Puranadi Panchara Triki Vidhimina Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpattaya Vikalpate, which means this quest must be with reference to Shruti, Smriti, Puranas, Puranadi, etc. Pancharatrika, Vidhim, Mina, with reference to, say, the wisdom of Vedas. Not without it, but with reference to. And with reference to means with the persons who are accomplished and that can guide the application of those principles. So it's not speculative, it's under the authority of. But I said it softly several times, but now I'm saying it a little more like definitively. So we should, if we're going to go down the path, if we're going to go down this one, with some guidance. Not willy-nilly, but with guidance. Because otherwise it is a utpat, big disturbance in society. They'll have so many isms and so many
distractions.
Chaos.
But sometimes there is a pattern in chaos as well.
Okay, tell me about it.
For example, okay, let me put it this way. We have a tube and we put in a ball in it, a ping pong ball,
Okay.
and it jumps around.
Okay.
But if we look at it after some time, it has a sense of direction. Ultimately, it's moving towards something because still it is in a tube, and either it's moving forward or backward. So there is a pattern to it. Does it make any sense?
That's pretty abstract. So let's just go to life. So the tube that I'm recommending is the wisdom literature. And move within that wisdom literature, yes, it will be moving in a direction. Rather than there's no tube, there's no frame of reference, and it's all over the place. So anarchy, it's not an advocacy for anarchy. It's an advocacy for self-inspection under the guidance of the wisdom of those who have been down that path, and they are experienced according to the authoritative teachings that have guided people for since time immemorial. Still, we're individual, but we can be guided within that parameter, like your tube and ping pong ball.
I have one more question.
I'm sure you do.
Anyone doesn't mind me asking. This is a question which has been asked so many times, and me and Avel he was driving me back home yesterday night, and I asked him as well, but I would like to confirm it with you.
Okay.
And the question is that we say that Krishna created everything, and he is in each one of us. Because he created us, he knows how we act. So, do we really have a choice?
Yes.
How? Because
How not?
Because he is omnipresent, and he is in future, he is in past,
Okay.
and he is in present.
Okay.
So he knows where are we going.
That's right.
If
That's
we
right.
have 5 sets of
Let me ask
hands.
you a question. You climb up to the 3rd floor, you jump out the window, and I said, you know what? He's going to splatter on the sidewalk. Does that take away your free will? That I know that you're going to splatter on the sidewalk and jump out the window?
Okay, let me put it this way.
But to answer my question, we have free will. And the fact that there's someone that knows the exercise of free will and the consequence of the exercise of free will does not take away free will.
If we have a mind of our own, so
We do have a mind of our own, and you have free will. I think
that is kind of paradoxical.
No. Well, paradoxical in the sense that it may be difficult to understand, but it's not a contradiction. And I think that, you've done a great job getting discussion going, and now I'm going to turn attention over here. How about after, we'll sit down and have a little chat?
I would love that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Whatever you said makes absolute sense, but I have a question. We say we have to be non-conformist, right? But we are not actually walking alone in the other path. We are taking instructions from scripture. So
Yes.
does it?
We're not, as he very nicely put it, we're not Albert Einstein. I'm not advocating follow the lifestyle of Albert Einstein. But I am advocating think beyond conformity. Now, when you start to think beyond conformity, wow, that feels good. Now, what's that like? It's not, anarchy. It's what's beyond conformity. So, and then guided. Because when some of us, there was a period where I didn't have a clue. I knew that I didn't have a clue, and I wanted to have at least a clue. And I started looking inside. And then I got, through different methods. And I realized, I don't know. Even if I come up with something that says blah, or blah, blah, blah. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. So how do you know? Vedic wisdom says there's evidence for knowing. It's called pramana. And without going through the whole thing, the best evidence, or pramana, is shabda pramana. So I'm out of this box of conformity thinking, what's it all about? And I don't know. But there's some means of knowing, pramana. And I can try this one on for size and try that one on for size. But then there's shabda pramana, or the eternal knowledge of the Vedic sound vibration. And wow, that makes sense to me. And it feels good. Let me explore that some more. So it's not conformity, it's an individual choice outside of conformity.
So you're actively making the
Yes.
process,
Yes.
involving yourself
Yes.
in finding the truth.
It begins with the question, jigyasu, and then you look around and what are the options? Okay. It's not conformity, it's based on an individual choice. Someone else?
So,
Yes.
to go off of that, your spiritual journey has brought you to teaching.
Yeah.
Is it wrong for someone's spiritual journey to bring them to being a doctor?
No. In fact, the two can go very nicely together. If one is, just subjectively, I went down the path and I thought, gee, I've received a lot. I want to give back to the person who I've received from, and I want to receive the fullness of what that person wished to give. So I took a step. I stayed in an ashram for a while because I want to jump in the pool and swim around rather than just touching my toe in the pool and saying, the water's warm. Jump in the pool. So I did. And after about 2.5 years, the thought arose, okay, now I know what it's like, and so now do I want to go back and finish my medical career? And it was a perfectly valid option, but now with light on rather with no light on. And my thinking went like this. Two things. There's lots of doctors, and there aren't a whole lot of people doing this. And I'm very happy doing this. I'm not feeling unhappy or uncomfortable or I'm missing out on something. I really like what I'm doing. In fact, the wish of becoming a doctor was to help people, and I feel I have a lot of access. I have a lot of time and a lot of access to people. So I could be a spiritual lights on doctor and do that. And that's fine. But I'm happy doing this. Maybe by doing this, I'll find some other people who will become doctors with their lights on. So I'll just do this. But the other would have been just fine. But I was very, very happy, and it was a conscious choice. And for somebody else, it may be something else, and that's fine. The advocacy is lights on, please. Be aware, self-conscious, conscious of who I am, and carry out activities of life in full consciousness. That's the advocacy. It takes a step out of the conformity game, a willingness to look at it and think about it, and keep asking the questions until the light goes on. Okay? We have 2 minutes. I'm sorry for moving so fast. But just trying to be conscientious about that. Anyone else? Okay, looks like it's lunchtime. Go ahead. Do it here to announce something.
So we're going to set up in a couple of minutes. So please stay around for lunch, don't leave, and then we'll have more informal